All right, hey guys, what's up? It's Jonathan, and I wanted to talk about what's a great save percentage for a lacrosse goalie, or even like what's a good percentage for a lacrosse goalie. But as with all my videos, you're going to get more of an answer than you ever thought you were going to get. So here we go. So I was a soccer goalie, an ice hockey goalie, I was a catcher in baseball, and I was a field lacrosse goalie. And so I want to start by saying that no other goalie really ever asks this question, right? So the question is like, well, why do we ask that? Well, a lot of new parents into the sport of lacrosse, and actually a lot of new goalies too, are like, oh my God, this is hard. Like you feel like you're getting scored on all the time. And so what that has caused, what that's created is this attitude of like, well, what would a good save percentage be? Like, wow, we just lost by like 12, but like what's a good save like what's a good save percentage? And over the years, we've seen, I believe, a decline in save percentage. Now, this is what's interesting is that when you look at statistics, it looks like save percentages have remained the same. However, I would argue that when we look at games that are meaningful, they've actually gone down. But I want to just touch on that point about how no other goalie asks that question. No soccer goalie asks what's a good save percentage. No ice hockey goalie really truly asks what's a good save percentage. You see them, and if you pull up the stats from the NHL or the OHL or the WHL, you'll see stats, but they're minuscule. They're like 0.985%, right? Or 0.97%. And you think about that. That's like, 3 goals out of 100 shots. So it can blow the mind a little bit. But the point is that field lacrosse is, in fact, in my opinion, and I think of a lot of people's opinion, the most complicated goalie position in any sport. Okay, with the exception of maybe like hurling. If you don't know what hurling is, Google it. But the idea here is that field lacrosse is complicated. Box lacrosse is complicated too. But we're talking about field here for a moment. So we've got sticks with pockets that can hold onto the ball, and we're able to change the trajectory of the shot at the very last second, right? So it's very difficult for goalies to read the stick, know what's going on, but that is in fact what we need to be doing. But what has happened over time, in my opinion, is that in field lacrosse, people ask like, well, what's a good save percentage? Really, as a way to be encouraged that their lack of performance is decent. Okay, what do I mean by that? Well, if you go out and you like stink up the place and you let in like half the goal, like half the shots that you face, well, if you go, look for somebody else and you're like, well, what's their save percentage? Oh, their save percentage is like 45%. I'm doing okay, right? Wrong. If you want to know what a good save percentage is for a field lacrosse goalie, I'm going to tell you. It's 100%. But coach, like, come on, that's totally unrealistic. It's field lacrosse. It's not unrealistic because everything less than that is an excuse. If you think about it, if you miss one ball, and let's say you get 10 shots and you miss one ball, that's a 90% save percentage. What happens when you find out what average is? Oh, average is like 50, 60%. Oh, I'm doing fine. Maybe. The question you're missing, the question you're forgetting to ask is, how could I have made that stop? That is always the question. How could I have saved that ball? Now, here's what happens in field lacrosse, almost more than any other sport, in my opinion, is that when a goalie gets scored on, and let's say it's a more difficult shot than others, like for example, a time and room shot from like the center of the field is going to be, I don't know how many magnitudes easier than a fake on the crease, right? Fair enough, right? Like we agree with that. Yes, there is a scale of difficulty of each shot. However, the question when a ball goes by the goalie is, how could the goalie have stopped that shot? Because what happens in field lacrosse, again, more than any other sport, is that some parents, lots of parents who don't want their kids to be disappointed will say like, oh, well, you're not supposed to get that one. Really? Well, then how about this? The next time you get a shot just like that one that you just let in, just walk out of the cage. Just exit stage left. Just, you're out of here. You need to understand that what the response for everybody would be if in fact the goalie did that, right? Oh, well, you're not supposed to get that one. Well, okay, well, just step out of the way. Just go, like, leave. Oh, wait, we can't let the goalie can't get out of the cage then. Well, why? Why not? Because if you truly believe that there's some shots that a goalie shouldn't get or shouldn't be expected to get, then you shouldn't have a goalie in the cage if you think about it. But my point is this, is that the answer to what is a good save percentage for a goalie is no different than what's a good face-off percentage for a face-off guy. You want them to win all of them. And that's what I want for our goalies. And in my whole philosophy for lacrosse goalies, my whole idea about changing the game, one goalie at a time, is that the attitude, the fundamental attitude of the goalies, the parents, the coaches, and all of the support around them needs to change their attitude instead, and not ask the question like, well, what's a good save percentage? Hoping that like 60% makes them feel better. It's that no, 100% is always the goal. It's always the goal. If today your team goes out and it's this crazy game where you face one shot and your team gets no shots, well, what do you want your goalie's save percentage to be on that one shot to give your team the chance to win? It's 100%. Doesn't matter where the shots come from. And that's something that's really important to understand. People get all caught up in trying to almost marginalize save percentages, when in reality, in the score sheet, there's no rating of the shots that your goalie faced, right? There's no like, oh yes, this ball went by him, but it was extra hard. There's no handicapping of shots in lacrosse or soccer or ice hockey or any other sport, field hockey, you name it. Why? Because you get a shot. Did you save it? Yes or no? If it's in the net, that's a no. Well, then how do you feel about yourself? Probably not too great. But the question is, what did you need to do to save that shot? And that's where all improvement begins. So, to my parents watching this, when you're wondering like, oh, your kid's getting peppered and they're playing on some youth league team or some club team and the team's not that great and they're getting shelled, the question is always this. When that ball goes by them, or it's the 15th ball or the 20th ball or the 30th ball in that game, the question of all those shots is, what do we need to do to make that save the next time? That's when learning happens. Because if you just dismiss it and say, oh, you're not supposed to get that one. I get it. We want athletes to feel like they can improve. Okay? It takes a tremendous amount of mental willpower if you constantly feel like you're losing. Because if you constantly feel like you're losing, then you're going to want to quit. The problem is that even good goalies, all right, even good goalies can feel like they want to quit if they're not keeping track of their statistics, if they're not keeping track of how well they're doing versus this week's team, next week's team, the team after that, and so on and so on and so on. I worked with a really good goalie a couple years ago. Parents sent me the video and said, "Hey, we'd like to work with you. We know you work via video with a lot of goalies. Can you have a look at our goalie and let us know if you think he'd be a good fit for you?" And I was shocked at just how good. This is one of the top goalies in the country. And the words from the parents were, he feels like quitting. Why? Because he feels like he's missing too many shots. The problem was, when we dug a little deep, he wasn't keeping enough. He wasn't keeping on top of this idea like, hey, your goal to go out there is to stop them all, right? Because what he was doing was, of the shots that were going by, he was just beating himself up mentally. And the idea there was he wasn't going like, well, how can I stop the next one? That's the only question here. So the answer to what's a good save percentage for a lacrosse goalie, it's 100%. It's always 100%. It always will be. And we've got to do better by our goalies and get them to be and get refocused on what do we need to do to stop the next ball and the next ball and the next ball. That's it.